Adventures in Mortuary Archaeology and Commemoration. It's Archaeodeath.
Welcome to another Archaeodeath interview with Professor Howard Williams and his guest.
Welcome, everybody. And it's Michelle again, who I'm just going to
Yay!
hand over the whole channel to because she does a better introduction than I do. You're welcome. We're talking hoaxes, part two. And last time we were doing all sorts of mortuary hoaxes. Michelle wanted, you are an expert in all these hoaxes, at least more than I am, because I tend to just blot them out. But you seem to know all the hoaxes. So hit us with some more hoaxy stuff. Hoax-aeology.
There is a study of hoaxes, but I don't own the monopoly on them, and I don't have the PhD in them. I leave that to other people who are much more erudite than I am and have more time. But we did talk a little bit about your favorite buddy, the Piltdown Man, last time.
Piltdown Man.
So, Howard, do you know what the Piltdown Man is?
Well, he was something to do with Piltdown in Sussex. And he was a man, and he was a. So that's my Austin Powers moment. Get out of the way. It was a genuine excavation at a genuine Paleolithic
Yes.
levels, wasn't it? And
Yes.
then, if I remember rightly, somebody did a hoax where they put a jaw of a ape with a skull of a modern hominin, a modern person, sorry, and they bleached one of them so they look kind of the same color or both. I can't remember, but and then they said, and everyone believed it, and now we think it was supposed to be a joke, and it wasn't. It was, yeah, I don't know. That's my remembrance.
Yeah, you remembered very well. So, I mean, during the early 20th century, there was a craze for finding the missing link. Ooh, the missing link that would prove that apes and humans were related. And this is in 1912. There was the famous jawbone that was found, and was said to have both human and ape-like qualities along with the skull. And a
But
man
enough
by the
about
name
me. Sorry, go on, sorry.
the man by the name of Charles Dawson, not Darwin. So Charles Dawson presented the jawbone as definitive evidence of this quote unquote missing link. And Dawson claimed that workmen at Piltdown Gravel Pit, as you said, was a real excavation.
Hmm.
That he handed them a fragment of the skull 4 years earlier. And Dawson also claimed that he found further fragments of the skull that belonged to the jaw. And he took these bones to Arthur Smith Woodward, who was a legitimate keeper of the geological department at the British Museum. And Woodward went to the site. He saw the for really real site, and he worked with Dawson for a while, but Dawson was the only one who, quote unquote, recovered these mysterious skull fragments and the lower half of the jaw. And so part of the skull was actually found in situ, but the jawbone, no one ever saw the jawbone in situ ever. So Woodward determined that the skull was real, and in many ways, obviously similar to that of a modern human, with the exception of the part of the skull that is sitting on the spinal column and the brain size, which he said was much smaller than a human's brain. And he did say that it was strange that the jawbone was identical to that of a chimpanzee, or it seemed very identical to that of a chimpanzee. But Woodward was the one responsible for claiming that the Piltdown Man represented the evolutionary missing link.
Missing
The
link.
missing link.
Because just to jump forward and jump back as well, this idea of a missing link is such a nonsense concept in its own right, isn't it? And yet it's still around in pseudo archaeology, regardless of Piltdown Man. The idea that the missing link has been debunked. We found the missing link, and it's not what people think. The idea of this, there's one clue that will link up the human story. I don't know. It seems to me just such a. I mean, I've been faced with it so many times by believers in various different ideas. It's never going to go away in itself, regardless of Piltdown Man. I don't know if you have views on the concept of a missing link.
Well, we have things like Lucy, obviously,
Oh yeah,
and we
yeah. I
have.
mean,
But
yeah,
but is that a missing link? No, evolution happens at such a snail's pace in
yeah.
terms of human evolution.
The
To
missing
find
snail.
one thing, yeah, to find one thing that is going to absolutely. And I think in modern times we've gotten rid of this idea of a missing link, and we know, and especially with this discovery of Denisovans and all this kind of thing, I think we're getting a moving away from this idea of that one idea that's going to prove we know now, obviously, and we have more gradual examples of this.
Hmm.
So, but back then, because of Darwin, they were very keen on finding so the skull that they found was actually around 50,000 years old,
Right.
which is interesting.
That's
But
pretty cool in itself.
the jawbone was only a few decades old, and the jawbone was the part that had been artificially stained with potassium
I
dichromate.
forgot that. So I honestly, I misremembered. I thought that I said earlier, I want to correct myself. I thought they were both modern, but of different ages. But I didn't realize that one is, actually a genuine fossil, and the other, yeah. So I mean, it's a good example of how a hoax is a genuine affront to science and knowledge, because it is misrepresenting the genuine find. It's not just simply we found someone going, and it's completely fake. Yet, what's the word? Yellow news or whatever the phrase is.
Yellow journalism,
Learner
yes.
journalism. It's not a complete fabrication. There's a genuine find that's being misidentified and combined with nonsense. So you're getting a double whammy, really, aren't you? You sort of, if that's the right term, it's a double insult. It's a double
Yeah,
thing.
but the
Because
question is, I mean, we don't really know who did it and why. We have a lot of speculation. British Museum researchers argue that someone took the jawbone of either an orangutan or a chimpanzee, and many people believe it was Dawson himself who worked with a very well-known fraudster, Pierre de Taillard de Chardin, because he was a priest who had participated in the dig. Or maybe there was a man named Martin Hinton who was an ex-employee at the British Museum, whom Woodward once refused to hire for a job. Some people think that he maybe had a vendetta, but we really don't know. Somebody suggested as well Arthur Conan Doyle, because he had a very big interest in paleontology at the time, but we
who
don't
else
know.
was around though at that very moment in the late 19th and early 20th century? Jack the Ripper. And I think it has to be. I mean, is that a coincidence? I think not. Just put it out there. No smoke without
It was
fire.
definitely him. It was, you know what, that's where, when they unearthed it, they put it together, and the skull and the jaw came together, and so lo and behold, Jack the Ripper was born.
Wow. Whitechapel, Sussex coast, or near, near south.
Yeah.
I mean, it's within the same country.
It's very possible that it was absolutely.
Did anyone see Piltdown Man and Jack the Ripper at the same time?
No, but you didn't see them not together.
I mean, it's not long before the moon landings, which are obviously hoax too. So it all links into the same thing, really, in many ways. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm being silly, but yes, a fascinating case study of hoaxology, or whatever we're calling it, and it's such an influential thing that many people, the pop culture of Piltdown Man, survived long past the hoax, doesn't it? So
Yes. Yes.
we've lived with Piltdown Man as a sort of, has its aura of something to do with ape men that's lasted through into. Yeah, it's fascinating.
It went all the way until 1953, which is when the definitive research was done, because many people said, oh, it's a fake, it can't be real, but there was no proof. And then 1953 was when they did the absolute definitive research and said, no, this jawbone doesn't even come from the skull, and it's a fake. So it lasted for quite a bit. It was quite a bit of time. And it took a while to go away, but I think nowadays I don't think anybody would defend the Piltdown Man. Like I said, we don't even, never saw the bone in situ, the jawbone, and nobody knows who planted it. So no idea why it was done. Some people say as well Dawson might have done it to undermine, but he was technically an early archaeologist himself. So why would he undermine his own scientific field? Nobody knows. No
I know
one has
many
any.
people who undermine their own scientific field on the regular, but let's not go there. I mean, in many ways, it's the perfect crime, because he's never been found, whoever
Yeah.
or she ever or they ever did it. And in many ways, you could say that. I don't know. I wonder about the whole idea of, you do something as a joke and it's just too embarrassing to admit it, and it just spirals to the point where you just go, yeah, do you know what? I've moved on now. I don't really care. I mean, I wish I haven't. For the record, I've never done this, but there is a little bit of me that wishes I could make up something as a joke. But I always think about Piltdown Man, and I think, what if people believe it? Like some of the TikTok videos where I've done little jokes for a couple of minutes and spun a line, and I always go, but that I just made up, and no one listens to the end. And then some people are going, wow, Howard, I really loved your video about that. I said, no. So I've stopped doing those now because people just don't have the attention span of a few minutes to realize I'm joking, you know.
It's all people don't really understand sarcasm
No,
or
no,
anymore.
no.
Speaking of jokes that have gone on for way too long, our good old friends, the Kensington Runestones.
Now, I was going to say, because this is another one. I mean, we have to do a timeline here because actually it's actually slightly longer, isn't it? Because it was about 1901 or 1898 or something like that through to 1950s again. So it's another almost half-century hoax, you know, or even long. Yeah.
Even longer. I mean, because there were a lot of these, not just the Kensington Runestones, but the Havener's Runestone, all the runestones found in Oklahoma, etc. But this one was discovered. The Kensington Runestone was discovered by Olaf Oman, who found it, as you said, in 1898, and he claimed that he was clearing recently acquired land. Very interesting there, and that he was clearing it for plowing, and he found the stone. He said he found it face down. And he said that it was rising out above the wetlands. And what did the runes say? Well, the runes on the stone told the story of 8 Gotlanders and 22 Norwegians who made the journey across to Vinland exactly in the year 1362.
What's the problem?
Year, that year. So what's the problem with naming that year, Howard?
1362. I don't know. I mean, it's nothing to do with the Vikings. It's way too late. But I mean,
and that's exactly so. Is that he claimed that the runestones claimed that the Vikings were there in 1362.
360 years late or something. Oh, 350 years. Yeah.
Exactly. And this is a problem that many people don't understand, is that the Viking sagas were written in the Middle Ages. They were not written in the Viking period, and they are not historical representations of things that have happened in the Viking period at all. And so he or somebody put this year of 1362 because that's when he thought the saga would be written, not realizing that's not when the Viking period was. As well, the runestones, they used Indo-Arabic numerals.
Yeah.
I mean, they were well in use by the 1200s, but not in the north, and certainly the sagas didn't use them. But the dead giveaway, of course, that this was all a fake was the language that was used in the carving of the stones. Do you know anything about that, Howard?
Off the top of my head, no. But it's totally anachronistic, isn't it? It uses phrases that wouldn't appear in medieval
phrases not even in Old Norse, and not even phrases that would be used in the Middle Ages, not even phrases that would be used in 1300s when this stone claimed to have got there.
Yeah.
A lot of it is early modern Swedish phrases, so the language of the 14th to the 16th century. So not even close. So
but it's a good example of how academia and intellectual fraternities within the United States sort of the elitism that they didn't realize that runes were still being used in parts of Midland Sweden through into the 20th century, and they're treating him as this sort of it almost shows the arrogance that they treated him like some sort of yokel, and yet he had a knowledge of how to carve these runes. Most likely it's him who carved the runes and set up the forgery and fooled the great and the good for, again, 40, 50 years. And in fact, unlike the Piltdown Man, this is running and running. In fact, the most famous runestone in the world is the Kensington Runestone, and it still needs experts like Henrik Williams countering it. And still, there's masses of online people. Everyone asks me about the Kensington Runestone all the time. So people have the legacy of Piltdown Man is of an archaism they may not know the full story, but as I said at the beginning, I couldn't remember it all. But it's known to be nonsense, and it's a kind of weird. This is still a live debate, as if it's somehow there's some evidence that proves it's maybe genuine, and when there isn't, it's been debunked again and again.
It is a genuine artifact.
It's a genuine artifact.
It's a genuine artifact of the Victorian
era. Forgery. Yeah, it's a genuine, very late 19th century example, and it does link to a story of white European colonization and the desire, the bigger thirst for creating deep time stories in the land that they're settling in, to try and create and while I'm sure I don't know about the motivations of Oman himself, but it's become a clarion call for various white nationalist and extremist groups who still like to claim the Vikings were there first, or were there in a significant fashion in Vinland and elsewhere to undermine indigenous land claims. So it still has veracity within extremist circles in a way that no one's clinging on to Piltdown Man as some ancestral claim to Sussex. No one wants to be in Sussex anyway, but at least it's not Kent. Haha. No, but there's online jokes about this all the time. We always mock Kent, but no, but Sussex, no one's making it I'm an indigenous person, I'm descended from Piltdown Man, but people are making spiritual and cultural claims to the Kensington runestone as a Minnesotan sort of origin story, aren't they, for Scandinavians in the New World?
Yeah, all of these fake real runestones, but fake anachronistic runestones. They were all made by Swedish and Nordic immigrants, and they, in order to again sort of remake that whole Vinland. We have no idea where Vinland was. There is only one Viking site that we have in North America, and that's at Lancet Meadows. And as far as we know, the Vikings were there for only about 8 years. It was never a settlement. It was just a series of houses, probably a boat stop where they could sit and fix their boats. But the ore was so bad there that they left, and they never settled it. So if Vinland was actually a thing, it probably was not here. It was probably maybe somewhere in Greenland or something like that.
And like we've got other amazing runestones that are genuine in the North America, such as the Canadian, I don't know how to say, is it Wawa runestone? Mm-hmm. Which is a 19th century Lord's Prayer carved into a stone by Swedes speaking the Swedish language in the New World, in North America. I know these terms, sorry. In Canada, what is now Canada. And it's cool. It's amazing, but it's not to do with the Viking Age or, early explorers. It's 19th century Swedes carving stones in runes with runes on. Yeah.
One of my favorite modern rune stones, which everybody knows is not real, is there was a LARPing expedition recently, a couple of years ago, and it was somebody who took down a drone with one of their weapons, and so they had carved a rune stone that looks very Viking-y of this one guy spearing a drone, which they made in a sort of
I remember that
early. It was fantastic. I love it. That's so good. I think it's great, and that's pretty much the same feeling. And I think we should just keep it that way.
Well, one of my students was telling me about a runestone on the Wirral Peninsula, which is not far from Chester in the English Northwest, which has a genuine Viking period heritage of Scandinavian settlers, of Hiberno Norse settlers in the early 10th century. But there's a runestone in the gardens of a public house next to Thingwall, next to the site where the place name suggests was the Viking Age Assembly. And I've always seen this runestone, and I knew it was modern, and it's a modern reference of since the late 19th century, people have created an affinity with the Norse and various place names and connections to the Norse. But people now believe, apparently in that area, that this is a ancient Viking runestone. And one of my students was saying, yeah, my dad made it when he did the pub gardening in the 90s. And I remember seeing it in the noughties when it was fresh and going, yeah, look, this is someone loves they know the place name. It's obviously modern, but no, it was her dad did it. That these
Amazing.
things easily creep out into pop cultures. People have said to me about the runestone, and because I'm Louis Theroux. Yeah. Pause for effect. Yeah. And I do that because I just can't get into it. I can't go, you're talking crap, but it's fascinating. So there's so many. This is why archaeology is not simply, will never be destroyed, because we're making more archaeology all the time, or making up more archaeology all the time.
Recently, I had Dr. Teninger Kellenberger. Dr. Ten is great, and she did a whole. She sent me a message saying, have you ever heard this idea that Cleopatra's tomb, that she ever said, "No man will find my tomb"? And I said, "Oh, that sounds very feminine, like the 1970s feminist movement, maybe that." Because I asked me if it was a Victorian hoax, and I said, "No, the only person I know who probably would have said that is Margaret Murray, and she was a serious Egyptologist. And while she made up a lot of stuff, like the witch cults, which obviously has been long debunked, she didn't really make up any of those things with regard to Egyptian archaeology. But now you hear it everywhere. You hear it everywhere on social media. No man will find my tomb.
Is it a spin-off Aelwyd from The Lord of the Rings and I Am No Man, and sort of people have sort of twisted it around from J.R. Tolkien, the idea of the two towers. No, Return of the King, isn't it, where she says
Return of the King, but it was first said really it was kind of repeated in the late 90s, early 2000s, And then because the archaeologist who's now working to find the tomb is a woman, it's even places like Nat Geo have repeated this phrase. And so Dr. Tim was going crazy, going, where did this come from? And I said, there is no, as far as there was certainly no Victorian who said that. But it's definitely modern. And now people think it's an ancient phrase,
Yeah.
just to emphasize what you were saying, is that these ideas of people think they sound ancient. But remember
Yeah.
what I always say, kids, if anybody says it's an ancient something, you know they're full of crap.
Well, I'm
Speaking of
waiting for
which,
my unwatched YouTube videos to become lore, Lore, and people will say they do say, you know.
some philosophers say, is that philosopher your dog, sir? I don't believe you. Speaking of which, let's talk about the Tomb of Christ in Japan. Howard, have you ever heard of
No, this
Kiristo
one
no
you meant.
Haka?
I've never heard of this one. This is brand new to me. Hit me with it. Not
So this is
literally.
for Japanophiles like myself. Everybody, I think, knows this one. There is the Tomb of Christ in Japan. It's in Aomori. So I'm not going to tell you about it yet, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you what it says on the gravesite. These are the exact words that it says on the gravesite, translated from Japanese. Howard, are you ready? Are you ready to receive the word of
I'm not
Christ?
really ready, but I'm going to try and be ready. Let me just. Right, let's go.
Pretend the raptor is in the room with you and be ready to receive the
I'm ready to be left behind.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Please don't just leave me, please. I'm fine. This is what it says on the gravesite. It says, Christ's grave. When Jesus Christ was 21 years old, he came to Japan and pursued knowledge of divinity for 12 years. He went back to Judea at age 33 and engaged in his mission. However, at that time, people in Judea would not accept Christ's preachings. Instead, they arrested him and tried to crucify him on a cross. His younger brother, Isukiri, casually took Christ's place and ended his life on the cross. Christ, who escaped the crucifixion, went through the ups and downs of travel and again came back to Japan. He settled right here in what is now called the Herai village and died at the age of 106.
106? Why? Is that some Shinto thing or?
No Shinto thing.
Okay.
On this holy ground, there is a dedicated burial mound on the right to deify Christ and a grave on the left to deify his brother, Isukiri.
Well, he carried the body all the way back, or is it?
No, well, Isukiri was the one who was who was crucified instead of Jesus.
Why have I not heard of this, Michelle? Why have I not heard of this?
So good, man. I love it. So now I'll tell you a little bit. It is a real place. You can go visit it, and there are legitimate pilgrimages to this place too.
Of course there are. Yeah.
So Kiyomaru Takeuchi claimed to have discovered Christ's real resting place in 1935 in Shingo, which is in Aomori, which is where it is now. And he claimed that he found this while he was surveying the village of Herai. And as we said, it's now the current village of Shingo. So he claimed that he wrote down all of these things in the Takeuchi documents, of which the originals amazingly went missing. And he said that he transcribed these and said that Jesus did not die on the cross. Instead, it was his brother Isukiri who died there instead. And he said that Jesus escaped to Herai through the strait in Siberia, residing there until his death at 106. So a retired Tokyo pastor, Aramasa Kubo, said that Shingo may have been settled by the descendants of the lost tribes of Israel.
Yeah, of course, those lost tribes of Israel, they got about.
we get around, man. And so, of course, a couple of years later, these Takeuchi documents were found to be a complete fake. The site itself, so it was built.
I'm shocked to hear that.
So shocked. The raptor has left the building. The site was not even popular until the 1970s, when it became kind of like a sort of wiggy-woo attraction that people thought was so weird, and they just had to visit it because they thought there's no way there's a Tomb of Christ in Japan, but it's still there today and people do go see it. And the village even hosts a matsuri, a festival for it, every year since 1964. So it is a real place. You can go see it. Jesus.
Well, I'm gonna start a whole new series of expressions like Isakuri wept and Isakuri H Christ and
Yeah, Kitty H Christ. I love that one. That's a good one.
Isakuri on a jet ski is my other one. There's a whole series of untapped potential here for
Oh,
not.
absolutely.
I mean, so again, we are a creative species. We make stories, even nonsense ones attract stories from Dobby's grave on a beach in Wales to Robin Hood's grave. We've talked about this before. There's many different ways we create graves for people where they aren't, and this is another wonderful. Obviously, it's not just a grave. It's linked to. I mean, I think really we should. I think the many churches need to accept this as authentic and back it as a. We should have a Disney theme park around it or something. I don't know.
And that's what Japan does best, and that's why they've kept it there, is because it's now a quote unquote symbolic grave of Christ, and so people do pilgrimages. And the Aomori as well. A lot of places in the Tohoku region in Japan, the northern region, are very starved for tourism. Even nowadays, people just don't go there because they do the Golden Route. They do Tokyo, Osaka, and then maybe Nara and Kyoto because people have limited time in Japan, so they don't go to Aomori. And the Tohoku region has many gems, and so they try their best to have many matsuri, many festivals to attract people, like the my favorite, the Namahage, but in Akita, the Namahage are ogres who come down from the mountains. They're a folk tradition. They come down from the mountains with their giant knife and their bucket, and they go around threatening bad children. It's the greatest. It's the greatest. Well, they go to your house and they go, "Oh, have you been doing your homework?" And the kids go, "No, I haven't been doing my homework." And then they scare the crap out of the kids. It's wonderful.
Like...
The parents are on the side taking pictures and laughing. It's wonderful. But
it's a sick culture, I tell you. No, but it's pretty fun.
This is why the kids behave, Howard. Okay.
Yeah, I could do some of that in this area of North Wales. I can tell you that. We need more fake graves of Christ as well. I can tell you that as well. But no, I was obviously only joking there. That's called humour. Everyone who's watching, I don't think Japanese sick culture. What I do find interesting though is, of course, there are, when you say pilgrims, I think it's important to qualify that at least to my memory, that there are many hundreds of thousands of Christians, and if not millions, in Japan, aren't there? It's obviously a very minority religion, but it is still there are Japanese people who for this may have meaning, as well as people from elsewhere who see it as a more touristy thing. That's really fascinating. Yeah,
when you see it, it's very strange. There's a whole spiral stairwell and a strange covering as well. They amazingly have the Star of David there, which I think it's a great one. But yeah, the whole thing is fantastic, and I think it's great. It's great as an attraction. And
the Star of David pops up on so many 19th and early 20th century Christian architecture. I've not got my head around it all, so I'm not. I try to blot it out with not blot it out, but try to get. I don't try. I can't quite understand all this Christian architecture, all this Christianity stuff. What's it all about?
Well, it's also that the Star of David has been used for many things. It's been for magical things.
Yeah,
it's not just like it's like when people go to Japan or China and they go to a Buddhist temple and they see a very specific symbol and they go, "Wait a minute, that's a hate crime." And then there are signs everywhere going, "No, this is the opposite way, and we had it first." And so they have to be very clear about that. So.
Well, the one that I know best is on the mitre of the bronze statue within the ruins of Coventry Cathedral to the first Bishop of Coventry, and everyone touches it and gets really excited about it. Why would he do that? And this was obviously destroyed in the Blitz, the Coventry Blitz, and well, it wasn't destroyed; it was the church was destroyed. But and people go, "Oh, look!" But it has a complex story. Yeah. Fascinating stuff. That's hoax number 3, but in many ways it's a kind hoax, isn't it? Because it's provided, it's not really fooling anyone, is it? And it's providing a focus of devotion. So whether it was intended to be or not, it's become a cultural phenomenon.
It's sort of like whether some people like it. It's sort of like the Shroud of Turin, where we know it's a fake. We have we literally have the receipts of who requested it. And we know when it was made, but as the Pope a few popes ago said, very simply said, because the Pope was the one who actually said, yeah, sure, go for it. Do a real inquest into it and see if it's real. And of course, they found it was not real. But the Pope said it is a representation of what something could be. It's a
Those Catholics,
representation
they've
of
always
faith.
got a way around it. And it's true, though, that if, from a Catholic Christian perspective, material witnesses of faith don't have to be historically verifiable. They are reflections on, so I can't find the exact words, and I'm not a Catholic, but yes, there is a legitimate, within the Catholic faith, there is a legitimate way of seeing fictive stories, legends, as part of the ways in which you can sincerely reflect.
It's like traveling 400 miles just to see somebody's random finger. Is that the finger of a saint? No, but it's a representation of the faith, and that is the point. And so I think this is the kind of like the same thing. Everybody knows that there's literally no way that Jesus had a brother named Isukiri. but it's wonderful to think about.
But you see, it's not a double standard to say that it's about how it's being constructed, how it's being used does make a difference. You can't not all hoaxes are the same. They have different powers and significances in our world and different harms that they can do. And so for people who, if anyone still thinks Piltdown Man's a joke, is real, then they are a joke. If someone thinks Kensington Woundstone is real, they are a concern. Whereas I imagine most people who want to find affinity with this, it's a mostly harmless Douglas Adams moment, isn't it? It's a mostly harmless. It's not immediately leading to some political ideology that's trying to decimate somebody else. It's kind of, or justify the decimation of someone else.
And the Matsuri, the festival that happens there every year, is really just a celebration of Christ and his life. Nobody really thinks that this is a real site.
Yeah. Cool. Yes. Have you got one more for us,
I
Michelle?
I do have one more for you, Howard.
One more shall be revealed.
It's a very serious one. And so are you prepared for the Michigan relics?
I do not know. No, I'm definitely not prepared because my mind is being tested to its very limit.
You are not prepared.
I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I'm not worthy. So this is back. Is this anything to do with Michigan, or is this some kind of weird name thing that's really to do with somewhere completely different?
So they were, quote unquote, discovered in Michigan, and there seem to be quite a lot of them. So this series of alleged ancient artifacts, again, remember, if anybody says immediate ancient, you go, no, that were discovered, in air quotes, during the late 19th and early 20th century. And so they claim to represent evidence of a Near Eastern culture.
Whatever one Mormons that is. Again, is it?
No, this is not Mormons. Near Eastern culture that lived in Michigan prior to Columbus being there, even though Columbus never landed in America. He landed in the Bahamas. And in 1890, a man by the name of James Scotford in Michigan claimed that he had found a number of artifacts, including a clay cup, and a bunch of tablets that had strange hieroglyphic-looking symbols on them. And when you actually look at them, you think, "Oh, come on!"
The drawings of a deranged
It's a 5-year-old
person.
with a crayon. That's
what it is. It's a 5-year-old who's seen something vaguely. You go, "Hey kid, draw me something mystical." And you go, "Ah." Sorry.
That is literally what happened. So the find was they made similar discoveries all around Michigan, following Scotford's original discovery, and amazing, Scotford had a digging company and declared he would dig until he located every artifact. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, that he said that.
Every
artifact, yes. Surprise,
surprise. One.
He banded together with a man by the name of Daniel Soper, who was a disgraced Secretary of State in Michigan. He was found guilty of embezzlement. Oh my God, could this get any better? And together they presented thousands of objects made of various materials, supposedly found in 16 different counties all across Michigan state. Isn't that interesting and coincidental, Howard?
The objects from the same modern state.
Yes, and every county managed to have something. All dug up by the same digging company. And the objects included coins, boxes, figurines, and cuneiform tablets as well that depicted various Bible scenes. including Moses handing out the tablets for the Ten Commandments. They're just too good. They're just too good. I would love to see cuneiform tablets with Moses on them.
I've
Amazing.
got to look up some of these pictures
Oh God.
of
In
these. I just is
in
there a
1891,
oh
Professor
my
Albert
God.
Emerson. Yeah.
Oh, this is worse than I thought. My mind. Sorry, I shouldn't live react. I'll try and. But what the flying? I mean,
I told you, as I
honestly.
said, it really looks like a child made them. So in 1891, Professor Albert Emerson, he was the first one to call all the relics fakes, obviously. And then other professors, a couple of years later, joined him. Professor Francis Kelsey of Latin and Literature and Professor Morris Jastrow. He was professor of Semitic languages, just looked at this and went, get out of here. It's all, he said the Michigan relics were a horrible mixture of nonsense ancient scripts that they all just threw together. The cuneiform on them was completely random and it didn't actually spell anything. Some of the animals looked like as though ChatGPT had made them. They were missing body parts. Then the clay tablets were dried,
Oh,
like the backs, they were dried on machines.
evidence of late 19th century AI.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, and aliens, yeah, because the tablets were dried on machines, so it must have been aliens who put that there.
Yes, and you know, looking at these, your description there could easily be applied to the film script for Aliens versus Predator, which I've just recently rewatched. You know, but no, but in all seriousness, there's nothing serious to say about these. What a mess! What a
Yeah.
mess!
So who
But
made them, Howard? You almost got it. Who made them?
Scottford, he sounds like a made-up name in itself.
So there was a lady named Mary Robertson who lived besides Scotford's sons, Percy and Charles, and she said that the boys had manufactured new relics all the time. So it
The
literally was,
boys.
yeah, it was kids. Well, I mean they were young men at the time, but yeah, they were the
Oh
ones who were literally making them. Yeah. And it was eventually Scotford's own stepdaughter was forced to sign an affidavit in which that she saw him making some of the objects himself and he threatened her life. So I
no,
love
I
I
just
love how a man with a digging company gets in bed with a man who was arrested for embezzlement. And the both of them just go, yeah, let's do this. This will be no one know. It'll be a laugh. It'll be
just
a
just
laugh.
just for context of how the internet world reinvents and recycles this. The first page I've clicked on is someone on a certain platform going, the Michigan relics are claimed to be a hoax because they prove that the ancient Hebrews built America. And you're just thinking, oh, you know, yeah, they're
It's one of the
lying to
lost
you.
tribes of Israel, Howard.
They're everywhere. They just won't stop. I don't want any hate towards those lost tribes, but if they're so lost, how come we keep finding them everywhere? You know,
Exactly.
they're not doing a good job of being lost. You know, they need to, you know, I'm serious. I'm sorry, but in all seriousness, I mean, these North American ones are more harmful because they are linked to all manner of modern era reinvented internet conspiracies that undermine indigenous peoples and don't do anyone else any good either, because what benefit is there for anyone to believe this nonsense when we have such rich archaeological stories for all parts of the Americans, never mind. And there's so many new debates going on, like the redating of Monteverde is just out, and you know, and I haven't even processed all the arguments about there's so much cooler stuff to deal with than this garbage, isn't there? You know.
But that's why it's really important to talk about these things is a lot of these, especially the North American hoaxes, are usually all done by well-known criminals, and two, usually done with some kind of undermining in mind to undermine either, as you said, the native peoples who were there, or to quote unquote. I love how they're like, oh, it proves that the ancient Hebrews built North America and that the natives are somehow the lost tribes of Israel, etc. It's just so mental. And but again, it's always that, oh no, it undermines either native peoples or other people who were here in order just indigenous cultures or even was it the Roman coin that was planted in the States as well, proving the Romans were there. What does that mean? What does it prove? Nothing. It doesn't prove
Proves
anything.
but it simultaneously creates a sort of it shows the desperation because there's so much rich history for Europeans.
Right.
Why why would you need to do that to underpin some fragile sense of identity and simultaneously affront everyone else? It's ridiculous. But these are just 4 amongst many rich hoaxes we could explore. I'm going to be having another Archaeodeath interview with a mutual on TikTok who is obsessed with debunking Tartarian stuff. And I
Oh
must
my
admit,
goodness,
I
that's
know
so
he has got a thicker skin than I have, because those oh my word. Anyway, but my point is, we must do this again on other matters and keep on scheming, because even though some of these are known to me, some of them have escaped and I'm supposed to be educated, right? I'm learning from this, because I didn't know Christ was in Japan, and I didn't know that
I didn't know he has a brother named Isukiri either.
So now I know. I've got all a new lot of slurs to invent, and I think there's some picture books that need to be written to accompany this whole story. I think I can see it. I can see a spin-off
if you go on
series
pilgrimage there, Howard, you need to go to that gift shop and find the book about Jesus and Isukiri.
I think Isukiri may actually be some kind of cute, cuddly anime type thing, and not be fully human. Maybe some kind of spirit of Jesus, or some kind of spirit helper.
Oh, I would love if he were a yokai. That'd be amazing.
Yeah. I couldn't remember the term. Yeah, so maybe there's different versions we need to spin out to a whole lucrative side grift of.
I do have more on crazy tombs, but that will be for next time.
Well, I want to thank you, Michelle, for sharing with us. I know you've got other things to do, more important places to be, but just thank you for sharing this. And just let's keep on humorously, or with hoaxologizing.
Amusingly. Yeah.
Hoaxaeologizing, which is a word for one of your TikTok videos, I think I've just made up. But let's keep on debunking, but also not taking it all too seriously, because otherwise our sanity, stretched as it already is, will disappear.
Follow Archaeodeath on YouTube, TikTok, WordPress, and a host of other social media.